Hey guys, my name is Guillermo Ibarra, and my research project is going to be on the history of slavery and abolition in Brazil. My argument is about slavery, and slavery has been around for quite a while. And Brazil was one of those countries that have used slavery even after abolition um, was used in other countries, while Brazil was one of the main countries that continued to have slavery and took a while to get rid of it. Um, my main argument, though, as we speak of, is why did Brazil take so long to abolish slavery? And my perspective, the way I thought before even doing any kind of research is labor. Labor is the main issue for many countries, as if labor is what keeps countries moving. Labor is what helps the economy grow in a way, but the way Brazil used its citizens, it was just a way that was not acceptable. This included like people being harassed, being sexually assaulted, and so on. Um, as I always say, I mean, slavery should have never been a thing. I mean, slavery has only been something that has affected the people instead of helping. I mean, obviously, slavery is not a helpful thing, right? But uh, back in the time, people would compare other people based on their color, based on the religion they believed in, based on uh, what gender they were, and so on. And this is what my argument's all about: slavery, and also what kinds of laws and bills were created to help reduce slavery, and how it has affected people's lives as well. Children. This has to be the worst and the most shocking thing um, that I've learned about. Uh, Children were also involved in slavery at a very young age, and they were treated as they were adults. This was just shockingly unbelievable, as I consider this crucial and literally sad. um Children were being sexually assaulted, they were being used as sexual objects, they were being disrespected, they were usually being used and treated as if they were like rags. And children uh were not meant to be treated that way. Children are the ones that are supposed to be learning from adults and learning to become better humans, learning. They're the ones that are supposed to that we are supposed to depend on in the future. And based on what I learned in slavery in Brazil, children were being used as slaves. This is just shocking and unbelievable. Uh, the mothers, though, they always fought for their children, no matter if they got into trouble, because I've also learned throughout my research that moms would try to defend their daughters or sons or whatever, and try to see or find a way to grant them freedom. Just like uh, a person I saw, or I learned about Maria Rosa, a poor Brazilian Black woman. She fought for her daughter's freedom. They were Brazilian slaves. They were really young, and um, and then this one fund that was invented, which was the Liberal Fund. It was created to free slaves, and it freed slaves from 1885 and 1887, giving children and women freedom. Uh, and I mentioned children, they were a huge deal during this era and during this time, as I understand that in order for slavery to exist, they had to be young. Slavery has also been something that has failed, and has been something that has struggled with abolishing slavery. And this also includes the idea of social structures. Many countries have already abolished slavery before Brazil got rid of slavery, such as the US and other European states. Brazilian were people were often being categorized by social structures from poor to rich, and were often being treated unfairly if they were poor or rich. Social structures has also been something that has created many problems, including racial ideals, and so on. Just like even though slavery was about to be abolished, people were still being treated the same way as if they were slaves, even if slavery was about to be abolished. The Free Womb Law. This is a really interesting law that was passed on September 28th, year 1871. This law guaranteed absolute freedom to all children and children before they were born from moms who were slaves. As you could tell, where it says Free Womb Law, the word womb, that means before they were even born. So they were still in the stomachs, they were still in the stomachs. And this law helped lead slavery to extinction, um, and has helped not only children, but also helped children stay with their moms and not being taken away by people and using children as slaves at a young age. Then later, as year passed by, the Golden Law was then created, and that I would go on and talk about later on in the presentation. Segregating law. This law was a type of law almost related to the Free Womb Law, but the only difference was that this law helped free slaves at a certain age, from age 60 and above. So once someone was 60 years old or older, they were considered as free slaves. As you may think, they were considered useless. They were considered people who did not have enough strength or enough ability to do what they needed to do, which is why the segregating law was created, to help free them and not deal with slavery anymore. This also affected labor in a way, and coffee production was a success there in Brazil at the time. Just like sugar in Bahia, coffee was a success in central south of Brazil and in the Praia Valley. Labor was also something that helped delay the abolition of slavery, making slavery hard to become extinct, as when people, when they saw labor was decreasing, as slavery was starting to be abolished, labor started to decrease tremendously. And that's where my idea, the way I learned and the way I understood, uh, made abolition of slavery to stop and slow down the process of abolition and the idea of abolition. Jose Bonifacio was a Brazilian poet, professor, and mentor for the Brazilian independence who also worked with Emperor Pedro I. He is famous for his writing a memoir addressed to the General Constituent and Legislative Assembly of the Empire of Brazil on slavery. Jose, um, the memoir addressed to the General Constituent and Legislative Assembly of the Empire of Brazil, this document was written specifically by Jose Bonifacio. This document was not written by anyone else but Jose. The only thing is that this document was translated by an English composer, William Walton, London. He's the one that helped translate and everything and all the ideas that Jose Bonifacio wrote. And in this memoir, Jose talks about a lot about the empire in Brazil and the ways it controlled and saw slavery. Jose also includes important names like Angel Severiano Maciel da Costa, a minister who had the idea of abolishing slavery, as well as Jose Bonifacio. And this source was a really interesting source overall, as not only does it talk about slavery and the idea of abolishing slavery, but it also shows real and current information written by Jose Bonifacio, a Brazilian writer who published his writing and ideas to share out to the people generation to generation and making sure it is never forgotten. This source also describes the ideas and situations of slavery, and also mentioning other countries like Africa and other European countries, how they struggle with slavery as well. This is the main title of Jose Bonifacio's uh, title, like of his writing. And as you could see at the bottom, it's translated from the Portuguese by William Walton. Lastly, the Golden Law. The Golden Law was the law that was created in the year 1888 that helped abolish slavery in Brazil, and that was signed by the Princess Imperial in Brazil, and passed on May 12th, 1888. 1888. And this law was passed by Princess Isabel, a regent to Emperor Pedro II. This law was meant to abolish slavery and give people freedom and eliminate and get rid of the idea of slavery and control on the people. This source also shows a document of the Golden Law and what this law is intended to do, as it is meant for us to understand what the law and goal of this law is meant to do. And I I saw that the Golden Law is something that not only helped abolish slavery, but also helped abolish slavery overall, just like the Free Womb Law. That was meant to give children and women freedom. And the segregation law, that meant to give freedom for people who are 60 years or older. And the Golden Law was meant for everyone overall to gain freedom uh, and get rid of slavery. And this document, as you see on the right side, that's the original document that is written and signed by Princess Isabel. And you could see that the writing is in different language. Yeah, you could see it's a different language, and you could see the signature at the bottom by Princess Isabel. And this is what um, Golden Law was created to do. So yeah, from what I've learned uh, during my research project, I learned that slavery has not only been something that has affected uh, a certain country. Slavery has affected many countries, as I never learned anything about Brazil. Brazil is something new to me, something that I never expected to learn about. Uh, I've always learned history on the US, like slavery in Africa, slavery in the South and America, and so on. But from what I've learned, I mean, uh, the history and slavery in Brazil, it was very interesting and very upsetting, as many people had to struggle with not only torture and and assault, but they also had to deal with seeing people die, seeing people get hurt, seeing people treating other people badly, and children is something that still stays in my mind, and I, I I just can't forget the fact that children had to go uh through this horrible time, and them dealing with slavery as well, seeing their parents struggle and suffer all the torture that they had to go through. And not only was this the problem, but the problem was Brazil hesitated and took long to abolish slavery because of labor, the way I understood during the research process. And while the US and other European countries have abolished slavery, Brazil hesitated to abolish it. And that is something that really uh, got me really upset and mad, as Brazil didn't really care about its citizens until they saw that it wasn't really working out. And many people were fighting for their freedom. And yeah, this is my slavery, and this is my presentation, guys. And hopefully you guys enjoyed, and hopefully you guys uh, have gotten the idea and learn about the different laws and important information on slavery in Brazil. Thanks for listening, guys.